The year is 1917. Tsarist Russia, a vast empire stretching across Europe and Asia, is crumbling. The First World War has ravaged the nation, leaving it ripe for revolution. From this maelstrom of chaos and discontent, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seize power. The Bolsheviks, committed Marxists, envision a society built on socialist principles. They promise peace, land, and bread to the war-weary and impoverished masses. The promise resonates, and the Bolsheviks consolidate their hold on power, crushing their opponents in a bloody civil war. In 1922, from the ashes of the Russian Empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or Soviet Union, is born. A new era has begun. Under Lenin's successor, Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union undergoes a brutal transformation. Stalin, a ruthless dictator, eliminates all opposition, real or imagined, through purges and forced labor camps. Millions perish in his reign of terror. Stalin's policies, though inhumane, rapidly industrialize the Soviet Union. He collectivizes agriculture, forcing farmers onto state-controlled farms. He implements 5-year plans focusing on heavy industry and military production. The Soviet Union becomes a major industrial and military power. However, this progress comes at a terrible human cost. Stalin's policies lead to widespread famine and suffering. The Soviet people, living under a totalitarian regime, endure constant surveillance and repression. Following Stalin's death in 1953, the Soviet Union experiences a period of relative thaw. Nikita Khrushchev, Stalin's successor, denounces Stalin's crimes and attempts to reform the Soviet system. However, Khrushchev's reforms are limited, and the Soviet Union remains a one-party state with an oppressive security apparatus. Despite its internal problems, the Soviet Union emerges as a global superpower after World War II. It establishes satellite states in Eastern Europe, creating an iron curtain that divides Europe. The Cold War, a period of intense ideological and geopolitical rivalry, begins between the Soviet Union and the United States. The Soviet Union and the United States engage in a costly arms race, developing nuclear weapons and competing for influence around the world. The Cold War brings the world to the brink of nuclear war on several occasions, most notably during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union faces serious economic stagnation. Its centralized planning system, once lauded for its rapid industrialization, proves inefficient and inflexible. Consumer goods are scarce, and living standards lag behind those of the West. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Recognizing the dire state of the nation, Gorbachev introduces perestroika, or restructuring, and glasnost, or openness, in an attempt to revitalize the Soviet system. Gorbachev's reforms, however, unleash forces that he cannot control. Glasnost allows for greater freedom of speech and press, leading to open criticism of the government and the Communist Party. Perestroika, intended to decentralize the economy, exacerbates existing economic problems. The winds of change sweeping through the Soviet Union also fan the flames of nationalism and separatism in its republics. Ethnic tensions, suppressed for decades, resurface. The Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania demand independence. In August 1991, hardline communists, opposed to Gorbachev's reforms, attempt to seize power in a coup. The coup fails, but it fatally weakens the Soviet central government. Boris Yeltsin, the newly elected president of the Russian Republic, emerges as a powerful figure. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigns, and the Soviet Union ceases to exist. The 15 Soviet republics become independent states, ending over 70 years of communist rule. The Cold War is over. The collapse of the Soviet Union marks a pivotal moment in world history. It signals the end of the Cold War and the triumph of democracy and capitalism over communism. However, the transition to a post-Soviet world is fraught with challenges. The former Soviet republics face the daunting task of building new political and economic systems. Russia, the largest and most powerful of the former republics, grapples with economic instability and political turmoil. Ethnic conflicts erupt in several former Soviet republics. The legacy of the Soviet Union remains complex and contested. Its achievements in education, science, and technology are undeniable. However, its history of repression, violence, and economic mismanagement cannot be ignored. The Soviet experiment, once hailed as the future of humanity, ultimately ends in failure.